as a fundamental frame of reference for responsible and sustainable tourism. The Global Code of Ethics for Tourism is a comprehensive set of principles designed to guide key players in tourism development, addressed to governments, tourism industry, communities and tourists alike. It aims to help maximize the sector's benefit while minimizing the negative impact on the environment, cultural heritage, and societies across the globe. Adopted in 1999 by the General Assembly of the World Tourism Organization, its acknowledgement by the United Nations 2 years later expressly encouraged UNWTO to promote the effective follow-up of its provisions. Although not legally binding, the code features a voluntary implementation mechanism through its recognition of the role of the World Committee in Tourism Ethics, to which stakeholders may refer matters concerning the application and interpretation of the documents. It has 10 articles that cover economic, social, environmental, and cultural components of travel and tourism. Now, let us proceed with our chosen destination. Baguio, to many, is considered as the summer capital of the Philippines. The city is also known as the home of tropical pines forest, lending the city name of City of Pines. It serves as a tourism hub in Cordilleras, serving as a jumping point to other tourist spots like Mount Pulag, Sagada, and Banawe. Baguio is considered a city separate from the province of Benguet, but it is considered as part of Benguet practically, and it is the economic center of both the province and Cordillera region. Some of the city's tourism promotion also point nearby to La Trinidad, which is both administratively and geographically in Benguet, and its provincial capital. Moving forward to Baguio's ordinances, it notes that the tourism industry has become a big business, that the market has become broader, changing rapidly, and is now more competitive. Thus, local government units must stand out to draw the interests and attend to the demand of tourists for something new. The ordinance asserts that the tourism branding was identified as a major factor in gaining attention and motivating the tourists to visit a place, and it is because of such that more and more destinations gear up their branding to help enhance experiences and attracts more visitors.
The Article 1 of Global Code of Ethics for Tourism, or also known as GCET. Tourism's contribution to mutual understanding and respect between peoples and societies. Emphasizing subsection number 1, the understanding and promotion of ethical values common to humanity with an attitude of tolerance and respect for the diversity of religious, philosophical, and moral beliefs are both the foundation and the consequence of responsible tourism. Stakeholders in tourism development and tourists themselves should observe the social and cultural traditions and practices of all peoples, including those of minorities and indigenous peoples, and to recognize their worth. Subsection number 2. Tourism activities should be conducted in harmony with the attributes and traditions of the host regions and countries and in respect for their laws, practices, and customs. That explains about how people give importance and shows respect with diversity. The article is very much correlating with the Baguio City Anti-Discrimination Ordinance. Principal author Vice Mayor Edison Bilog said Ordinance Number 13, Series of 2017 is consistent with the principles of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, the international human rights and humanitarian standards, the international treaties adhered to by the Philippines, and existing Philippine laws. The ordinance measures the following that are prohibited acts: violations of economic, social, and cultural rights, denial of right to work, denial of right to education, denial of access to goods and services, discrimination on accommodation or lodging establishment, inflicting stigma, inflicting others to commit acts of discriminations, and inflicting harm on health and well-being. The second one it is being correlated with is where the City Council approved on first reading a proposed ordinance providing for an Indigenous Peoples Mandatory Representative, or also known as IPMR, in the local legislative body and in qualified barangays in the city. The ordinance authored by Councilor Arthur Aladio said the measure is pursuant to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, the Constitution, the Local Government Code, and the Indigenous Peoples Rights Act, or again IPRA. Among the indigenous peoples that inhabit the city are indigenous peoples from the different parts of the Cordillera, such as the Ipaloy, Kalamuya, Kankane, Tuwali, Tingalan, Kalinga, Isneg, Apalay, Bontok, and other tribes from the lowlands and the other regions of the country.
Article 2 consists of 5 subsections, but we will be focusing on the 3 subsections, and these are the subsection 1, subsection 2, and the subsection 4. Now, what is Article 2 all about? The Article 2 is tourism as a vehicle for individual and collective fulfillment. Subsection 1 states that tourism, the activity most frequently associated with rest and relaxation, sport and access to culture and nature, should be planned and practiced as a privileged means of individual and collective fulfillment. When practiced with a sufficiently open mind, it is an irreplaceable factor of self-education, mutual tolerance, and for learning about the legitimate differences between peoples and cultures and their diversity. The Anchor Ordinance of Baguio in the subsection 1 of Article 2 is the act shall be known as Revised Charter of the City of Baguio. Section 2, Declaration of Objectives and Core Values. The objectives and aspiration of the City of Baguio, hereinafter referred as the city, are as follows. A. To make the City of Baguio a home of dynamic and diverse cultures. To be a center of education, trade, and tourism in consonance with the laws of nature and environment, to be managed by sincere and steadfast leaders who are God-fearing in partnership with responsible citizenry. Subsection 2 states that tourism activities should respect the equality of men and women. They should promote human rights and more particularly the individual rights of most vulnerable groups, notably children, the elderly, the handicapped, ethnic minorities, and indigenous peoples. The Baguio Ordinance No. 13 section of 2017 prohibiting discrimination and enforcing equality before the law and equal protection of law without any discrimination in the city of Baguio on the basis of religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and gender identity, health status, disability, and age, providing penalties, violation thereof, and for other purposes. On this note, every person must be given equal access to opportunities in all fields of human endeavor, and to equitably sharing of social and economic benefits for them to freely exercise the rights to which they are rightfully entitled, free from any prejudice and discrimination. Thus, the promotion and upholding of their rights will not only enhance their freedom, welfare, and dignity as humans, but will also promote social justice as a whole, and will contribute in the creation of human rights-sensitive culture in the country. Lastly, subsection 4 states that travel for purposes of religion, health, education, and cultural or linguistic exchange are particularly beneficial forms of tourism, which deserve encouragement. Baguio's Ordinance Anchor and the subsection is the Republic Act or RA 9503 or the Tourism Act of 2009, provided that the state shall seek to create a favorable image of the country, thereby strengthening the country's attraction as tourist destinations and eventually paving the way for other benefits that may result form of a positive global view of the country. The ordinance asserts tourism branding was identified as a major factor in gaining attention and motivating tourists to visit a place, and it's because of such that more and more tourist destinations gear up their branding to help enhance experiences and attract more visitors. The ordinance states that many cities and municipalities in the country have also been using tourism branding, such as the hashtag Breathe Baguio. The summer capital officially launched its brand during the 112 Baguio Charter Day anniversary. The hashtag Breathe Baguio brand is inspired by Baguio's history, that was formerly an Ibaloy rancheria, that was then transformed by the Americans into a hill station for a rest, recreation, and wellness. Then to what is now a bustling, highly urbanized melting pot of various cultures. The breathe denotes a relaxing feeling or being able to breathe when in Baguio, that is also popularly known as the City of Pines. Markers installed in strategic areas in their areas of jurisdiction, and the same have been found to be very successful by tourism specialists, as indicative of tourists having numerous photos taken at the said markers, and visitors commonly asking where the tourist brand markers of the places they visit are located.
Article 3. A tourism factor of sustainable development. And under this article is subsector 5 that says that the nature tourism and ecotourism are recognized as being particularly conducive to enriching and enhancing the standing of tourism, provided they respect the natural heritage and local population and also are in keeping with the carrying capacity of the sites. And also under the Presidential Decree number 1762, transferring, ceding, and conveying to the Philippine Tourism Authority the Burnham Park Reservation that is located in Baguio City, was reserved for park purposes only by the virtue of Proclamation number 6-4 promulgated on August 6, 1925. Whereas the Burnham Park has since then evolved into the central amusement milieu for both local and foreign tourists visiting Baguio City. And also, the increment of tourist arrival to the Philippines in general, Baguio City is in particular dictate the centralization of planning, development, management, and direction of tourism zones, and also peculiar geographical location with indubitable touristic appeal under an entity of the government knowledgeable of the ramification of the tourism industry. And in addition, the PTA shall take immediate possession and administration and control over the park upon approval and review of any and all contract agreements or covenants entered in respect with the end in view of terminating those inconsistent with the purpose of this decree. The Philippine Tourism Authority may not alienate, mortgage, or otherwise encumber the said parcel of the land or any portion of this. This decree shall take effective immediately because all law decrees, proclamation, and executive orders, when they are inconsistent with it can be revoked or modified accordingly.
Article 4. Tourism, a user of the cultural heritage of mankind and contributor to its enhancement. It has 4 subsections, but we will give emphasis on subsection number 4, which states that a tourism activity shall be planned in such a way as to allow traditional cultural products, crafts, and folklore to survive and flourish, rather than causing them to degenerate and become standardized. As an example of this, Baguio pushes Buy Local, Go Local Ordinance, a program that aims to stimulate demand for locally manufactured goods and locally grown fresh products to save the local jobs and support the economy, which is still reeling from pandemic-induced crisis. The campaign was established to support Philippine micro, small, medium enterprises by shifting the buying patterns of consumers toward the country's fresh produced and manufactured goods. This shall help stimulate and boost domestic travel and encourage Filipino consumers to patronize Philippine-owned and operated facilities and services.
Article 5. Tourism, a beneficial activity for host countries and communities. Its subsection 4 states that tourism professionals, particularly investors governed by the regulations laid down by the public authorities, should carry out studies of the impact of their development projects on the environment and natural surroundings. They should also deliver with greatest transparency and objectivity information on their future programs and their foreseeable repercussions and foster dialogue on their contents with the population concerned. Let's focus on the private sector. Those businesses where people, called the tourists, acquire and purchase products and services. These businesses cater to the stay of the tourists in the area and could also affect the tourist arrivals itself. Councilor Elaine D. Zambrano authored an ordinance that requires establishments in the central business district to incorporate in their business areas, stalls, or buildings a green zone to promote an environmentally friendly central business area in Baguio City, and as an act of support to the improvement of air quality in the city proper that benefits the whole community. Under the ordinance, all businesses are required to place and maintain their premises indoor and outdoor plants, and for every 10 square meters of commercial space, a minimum of 10 potted plants shall be required. For commercial buildings, a requirement to construct or place plant boxes with natural plants in their premises. The councilor pointed out that no business permit shall be given or renewed without satisfactory compliance to the pertinent provisions of the proposed local legislative measure. That includes commercial buildings like malls, shopping centers, fast food establishments, amusement areas, and others, which are the primary destinations of people. Aside from that, Baguio City has an ordinance number 35, series of 2017, which is the Plastic and Styrofoam-Free Baguio Ordinance. It prohibits business establishments from providing customers plastic bag or polystyrene foam container for goods or items purchased, or serving food or drink take-out or dine-in. Instead, it's mandated to provide or make available to customers for free or for a cost paper bags, reusable bags, or containers made of paper or materials which are biodegradable. By abiding in the said ordinances, those private sector could continue their operations and help the community at the same time.
Article 6. Obligation of stakeholders in tourism development. It has 6 subsections, but we will give emphasis on subsection number 1, which states that tourism professionals have an obligation to provide tourists with objective and honest information on their places of destination and on the conditions of travel, hospitality, and stays. They should ensure the contractual clauses proposed to their customers are readily understandable as to the nature, price, and quality of the services they commit themselves to providing, and the financial compensation payable by them in the event of a unilateral breach of contract on their part. As for the Baguio, I highly suggest that the tourism officers, tour guides, or the tourism professionals should have transparency to the tourists about both the negative and positive sides of what to expect in the destination, and that Baguio Tourism Office should have a policy of this said transparency, from the prices to the services that they should be expecting, be it about the contract scope and what to expect when it is bridged.
Article 7 from the Global Code of Ethics Tourism or GCET, Rights to Tourism. It indicates under subsection 1 the prospect of a direct and personal access to the discovery and enjoyment of the planet's resources, constitute a right equally upon to all the world's inhabitants. The increasingly and extensive participation in national and international tourism should be regarded as one of the best possible expressions of the sustained growth of free time, and obstacles should not be placed in its way. Too deep? Let me put it this way. People per se or the tourists have the right and have access upon the community of Baguio to enjoy its natural resources, other things they offer as a tourist destination. But as a tourist, we also have obligation to respect the community and have the proper manner or participate or lingering around the area. We cannot go to a particular place and use its resources and leave our used up materials behind. We have to keep the destination sustained as possible. This is where such rules or saying like kill nothing but time or take nothing but pictures or photos are as to disturb or ruin anything that is left for us to enjoy or any natural resources. Now, if we're going to apply this rule, we have an activity. The protection on safeguarded lands intensified. By protecting and preserving the environment, it is one of the city's trusts in order to make the mountain resort a better place to live in by constituents and the next generations. The Local Government Code of 1991, as amended, mandates every local government units to implement and comprehensive and sustainable development practices to protect, conserve, and mitigate ensuing environmental concerns of its natural resources. Since the national environment is fragile and in need of special legal protections, the acting city mayor, Vice Mayor Edison Bilog, created the Safeguarded Lands Identification Protection Management Committee, or also called SLIPMC, through Administrative Order Number 153. The committee will also request the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to town-site sales applications, miscellaneous sales applications, free patents, and special patents application within Baguio for the city to act appropriately on said applications. If you get a little curious thinking that how is this related to protecting the tourists? Well, if you get to understand it more deeper, the order says is to protect the environment and make it sustainable ways. To help the tourism in Baguio City, which actually means the tourist will still be a part of the plan. They still have the freedom to enjoy the location while the community strives to protect the environment from the tourists. It actually is a both win-to-win scenario. While the government of Baguio City gave you the rights to enjoy its destinations and then protecting the area for you to actually see what they have to offer.
The liberty of tourism movement in Article 8 is composed of 5 subsections, but we will be focusing only on subsection number 3. According to Article 8, subsection number 3, the tourists and visitors should benefit from the same rights as the citizens of the country visited concerning the personal data and informations concerning them, especially when these are stored electronically. Baguio City has long been known as a tourist haven where thousands of residents and tourists appreciate the city because of its amazing and breathtaking tourist spots. As the city opens for leisure and tourism purposes, the officials adopted the provision and principles under the Department of Health. The health promotion framework strategy, tourists and visitors, wherein every tourist must comply with the requirements upon entering any establishments. In line with this, Baguio District respects and protects the privacy of the data subjects. This includes employees, clients, tourists, service providers, and other stakeholders in accordance with Republic Act No. 10173 or otherwise known as the Data Privacy Act of 2012 and its implementing rules and regulations. The request for data and information, unless access is denied, shall be guided by the BWD Freedom of Information Manual. This privacy policy provides an approximation on the collection, use, retention, disclosure, and disposal of personal and sensitive personal information as defined under the law. The collection of information is provided when tourists connect by any means, either physical or online, through survey, website usage, requests, applications, or transactions, or in any other forms. It is stored in paper and electronic formats and retained only for such period. Then it shall be disposed in a secure manner that would prevent further processing, unauthorized access, and disclosure to any other party. This compliance is monitored by the Data Protection Officer and Data Compliance Officer.
According to subsection 2 of Article 9, Rights of the Workers and Entrepreneurs in the Tourism Industry,
Salaried and self-employed workers in the tourism industry and related activities have the right and duty to acquire appropriate initial and continuous training. They should be given adequate social protection. Job insecurity should be limited so far as possible, and specific status with particular regard to their social welfare should be offered to seasonal workers in the sector. It is already common knowledge to us that tourism is indeed seasonal. There are times that the tourism in our area is at its peak, and there are also times where the tourism in the area is at its lowest. Despite the changes in seasons, employees such as salaried or self-employed should not be limited with their rights. Based on my understanding with subsection 2 of Article 9, the city government should consider creating ordinance that will benefit and protect our workers and entrepreneurs in the tourism industry. And despite being seasonal in nature, employees and workers in the industry should be given equal treatment in work and salary. For me, workers and entrepreneurs in our industry should be given a chance to participate or create an event where they can sell or provide service to make up for the low sales during the lean season of the tourism sector in the area or province. In addition to that, workers or employees in the tourism sector of the area should continue to train in different departments such as in tour guiding, customer relations, so that when something unexpected happens, they'll be able to cover it up or manage.
The Department of Tourism said sustainable tourism can still be achieved in Baguio City, which experiences year-round issues like traffic and growing pollution attributed by locals to constant high numbers of tourist arrivals. But there is hope on the horizon, according to Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat. In relation to the aforementioned tourism concerns, I suggest the following program and the ordinance to help alleviate the current tourism problems in Baguio City. Number 1. I suggest the ordinance numbered 78 entitled Towing Ordinance of the City of Baguio. The purpose of this ordinance is to provide for a regulated towing system of damaged, abandoned, immobilized, illegally parked, or disabled motor vehicles on public right-of-way or on public or private property within the city streets or roads. Number 2, I would like to suggest the implementation of Puerto Princesa's Clean Air Program to Baguio City. The local government of Puerto Princesa City, in collaboration with the private sector, media, civil society organizations, and academic institutions, initiated the city's Clean Air Program to achieve the following objectives. Number 1, to effectively implement the Philippine Clean Air Act at the local level. Number 2, to reduce traffic congestion along major city transport routes. Number 3, to improve air quality in the city. Furthermore, according to Article 10 of Global Code of Ethics, the public and private stakeholders in tourism development should cooperate in the implementation of these principles and monitor their effective application. The GSET, as earlier mentioned, is not binding, but it can do a whole lot of good to the country if adopted and enforced among key players in the sector. In relation to Article 10 that deals with the implementation of GSET as a fundamental frame or reference for responsible and sustainable tourism, if Baguio City also implements the aforementioned program and ordinances, sustainable tourism can still be achieved in the city.
Thank you for watching. I hope you learned the 10 articles of Global Ethics Tourism of UNWTO and the anchor ordinances of Baguio City. Again, thank you so much for listening.